Good evening and welcome to another installment in the series Family Time. Yes, this is Family Time, and as you know, Family Time is the show about your issues and your relationships. It's about your at-home family, your community family, and yes, your global family. Family Time is produced by Family Life Ministries. And at Family Life Ministries, our aim is to foster healthy families that will lead to healthy relationships. So, what are we going to be getting at today? Before we do that, let me just remind you all those persons on Facebook, all those on YouTube, and those who are following us on Instagram, you can comment and you can share your views. I'll tell you how and what the question is for today. So, today we're going to be looking into a serious matter. But let me ask you a couple of questions first. Have you ever heard a family member say, "Hey, why can't we all just get along?" I put it to you again. Have you ever had to ask a brother, sister, mother, father, niece, nephew, other relatives, and friends? And I see you get the point. Have you ever had to ask, why can't we all just get along? Well, if you have, maybe the answer was this: because personalities clash. That's right. That could very well be the reason why you have so many struggles and tit for tats and stuff going on in your family. For us today, we want to know, how can we solve this problem? What can we do? How should we go about doing it? Are we going to need professional help? Yes, no, when, why? Let's look at all these. And our expert to join us today is Dr. Joan Pinkney. But before we get to Dr. Joan, let me ask you to contribute to this show by sharing your views with us. So, the question for you is, how do you solve personality clashes in your family? So you don't need to talk to me about your neighbor or your friends. It's all about you. How do you solve personality clashes in your family? You can comment on Facebook and YouTube if you're watching via those platforms. And of course, our studio lines are here. So for studio lines, 876-968-8327 or 876-968-8328. The WhatsApp line is up as well. You can send voice notes or texts. If you're sending a voice note, keep it to less than 30 seconds. Yep, no more than half a minute. Right. So the studio lines, I gave you those already. The WhatsApp lines, 876-997-3125. That's 876-997-3125. When we get back from this break, Dr. Joan will be joining me to dig into this clash of personalities in the family. This is Family Time. Come back with us.
The All-American Institute of Medical Sciences (AIMS) is your preferred tertiary institute with campuses in Black River, Kingston, and Mandeville. AIMS expands your mind to an associate degree in health sciences with electives in pharmacy technician, medical assistant and phlebotomy, dialysis technician, surgical technician in 18 months at a cost you can afford. We also offer a 4-year medical degree program and a Bachelor of Science in Optometry. You'll find the AIMS experience to be an enriching one. Enroll at AIMS today. Call 876-634-4068 or visit the website aaims.edu.jm. Medical education par excellence.
Bashco time. All the things that you need for your home at prices so low, you would never need a loan at Bashco. At Bashco. Appliances, houseware, furniture, and rugs. Eastside linens and glass and mugs at Bashco. You're shopping at Bashco. Whether the north or so in the east and the west, Bashco. Them all over, they must be the best at Bashco. At Bashco. You're shopping at Bashco. At Bashco. 30 years giving you more.
Jamaica. It's time to find our 2022 Gospel Star. Your votes will help decide the 2022 winner. Watch the show this and every Sunday live streamed on the Jamaica Cultural Development Commission's Facebook and on YouTube JCDC Jamaica channel at 6 p.m. Remember now, vote for your favorite and watch the grand finale on Saturday, July 30th at 6 p.m. Let's lift up the praise and find our new Gospel Star. Sponsored by Passport Immigration and Citizenship Agency, PICA, and Shirley. You can watch this Sunday on Love 101 FM social media platforms on Facebook and YouTube, and listen live on Love 101, the family station.
Importers. Shipments requiring you to pay customs duties and taxes are cleared on a customs goods declaration, known as an IM4 or IMS4. Ask your clearing agent to provide your customs declaration, customs assessment notice, and customs receipt once duties and taxes are paid. Where your clearing agent may not be able to provide the IM4 or IMS4, request your customs goods declaration registration number or C number, which can be used to verify your payments. Importers, request your IM4, IMS4, or C number. It is your right. For details, email the Jamaica Customs Agency at public.relations@jca.gov.jm. Jamaica Customs, keeping our customers in focus.
Welcome back to Family Time, and you are tuned into Love 101 FM, the family station. As we said before, today we are talking about personality clashes in the family. Yep, we're keeping it in the home. And our guest is Dr. Joan Pinkney. But before we get to Dr. Joan Pinkney, we are going to be asking you to join us again by contributing to the program with your comments. So the question is, how do you solve personality clashes in your family? How do you solve personality clashes in your family? Send your voice notes or text messages via WhatsApp to 876-997-3125. You may call the studio lines at 876-968-8327 or 876-968-8328. You're watching on Facebook and YouTube, go ahead and leave us a comment. You can post there as well. So here we go. And I think I need to grab my pen because I may be taking some notes here from the goodly doctor. So here we go. Dr. Joan, how are you doing today?
I am well, thank you. And how are you?
I'm doing well. Happy to be in good company. Happy to be where I can learn once more. So let's see how much I can get.
Well, happy to be here as well.
Awesome. So let me start with what may seem basic, but we're beginners and learners here. What are the different personality types? We're talking about clashes. What are they?
Well, perhaps we should start at defining personality. Maybe that's a better place to start, yeah? And it's really defined as a person's distinctive patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving. So it's a mix of your innate personality, your innate disposition or predisposition, what you're born with, and how the environment has influenced how you act out what you're born with, or how you play out in those other areas of your life. Of course, these discussions have been going on for years, from early ancient Greeks, where they proposed 4 basic temperaments, and we call it temperament. But they really amount to traits which are building blocks to our personalities, and these are ways that we behave over time. There's the tension or the conflict between nature, which is the genes and what the hereditary factors, things that you're born with that influence who you are, and nurture, the environment, your parents, your childhood experiences, and so on. And so those continue to be a big discussion. Yeah. So there are some traits, there are some things that are going to stand out that make you unique, that make you different. And so, pardon me. And then so those identify you as such. Of course, there are different traits that you will show. So one or two traits may be dominant, and you may have several other things that can describe you. So, but a personality is really a distinct way of behaving, distinct way of thinking, distinct way of feeling, distinct way of behaving, and that usually carries you from toddlerhood, infancy even, all the way through to adult life. So to answer the question more directly, that there are several personalities that have been identified. So you may be, for example, an introvert, an extrovert like you. So you're not introvert, yes. You can be a sensor, so you are, or you can be a thinker. When I was growing up, was not just when I was growing up, even now, persons will say, boy, when you think about personality clashes, boy, I'm a spirit that take the person just kind of rub me wrong. I don't know if you ever heard those kinds of things.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, so when we talk about the clash, when we talk about the differences, we're talking about where one person has a different way of thinking, and it's not just casual or once in a while, but it is pervasive. It is in your face, and you just can't seem to settle it or settle with it. So you have the introverts, those who prefer to think inwardly. You have the extroverts, those who are bubbly and all over the place, like a certain person, handsome gentleman I'm talking with now. And the sensors, the thinkers, the judges, the feelers, the perceivers, those who agree without any issue. So we talk about those who are into agreeableness. Those are more conscientious. Those are open to experience and are ready to explore. And those neurotics, those persons who are more predisposed to negative behavior, anger and anxiety and irritability. So we also have what we call type A personality, those persons who are go-getters and they need to get it done now, and the structure and everything must be done right away. And those who will get it done, type B, it will happen. It will happen. I'm taking my time. And so on. Now we have two other categories, type C and type D. So it's quite a complex discussion, quite a complex phenomenon, but quite interesting. But suffice it to say that it really is about the different ways that you express yourself, different ways that you think, the different ways that you feel.
Wow. You said it was complex, and I was saying a while ago, after you mentioned the first four, the introvert, extrovert, sensor, and thinker, I thought I was done. And then I found myself drawing lines to figure out what. So is it that you gave me subtypes of the introvert, extrovert, or are there different categories altogether?
Right. So you do have, remember I said that you may have a dominant trait. So you may have, say you may be an introvert, but you still like a social life. So you may go out and you may, which can mimic extrovert, but it doesn't mean that you're going to be the life of the party. You just like to be out and you like to watch people, interact and so on. In fact, the whole business of personality starts from when you're an infant, and the discussion about being an easy child, being a difficult child. There's some psychologists by the name of Thomas and Chess that came up with these various factors. And these are as a result of research that was done that showed that there are some children that are very difficult, cry all the time. And those may be linked to being neurotic, that are always negative and angry and so on. And there are those who are very agreeable, So they're easy. They don't give no trouble. You don't even know when they're hungry. You know, those kinds of babies. And you say, boy, they're good babies. So you do have, yes, you do have a range of display of personality, even from infancy all the way through to say mid or early childhood. And then it expands itself and you begin to see more distinct features such as the introvert and the extrovert and the sensors and the thinkers. So it's not that you don't have other traits or you don't have other factors that influence who you are, but those that I'm listing are those that are more dominant in your personality.
Okay, so when people say, well, take it or leave it, adjust some mistake, mentioning the fact that, from early, from your toddlers, we are just coming up and you can sense what's happening and what area they may fall in as they go based on how much they cry and different stuff. Are we really to ease people up and just understand and say, adjust so them stay and them really can't help it?
Well, the good book tells us that when you're a child, you speak as a child, you understand as a child. But you want to become a man. Am I preaching to somebody?
Somebody say amen.
When you become a man, you put away childish things. So there is a place for you to follow how you feel as a child. But as you get older and you become you become aware based on moral standards and principles and guidelines and so on from your environment, primarily your parents, you begin to make those distinctions between what is right and what is appropriate and put them in perspective. It doesn't necessarily change the dominant person of who you are, but what it does is that you're given the responsibility to ensure that you appropriate the behavior because you're now an adult, and so you don't just do what you do without any kind of understanding of how it may impact others and how you may be perceived. But you are very careful with how you operate in that regard. So persons we say some mistake, it's sometimes I call it a cop out because persons don't want to adjust and to do what is considered to be right. But there are prevailing traits that are there that are who you are, and that's okay. You don't need to apologize for it. Yeah, you don't know.
Right.
What I found too is that sometimes, even though you may say, okay, I'm an introvert, but in role, you may have a leadership position. And so that leadership position demands that you show skills of an extrovert because the role that you're playing in that particular job that gives you the bread to earn the money so that you can survive, you have to assume the role of leadership, and that may demand that you be more assertive and aggressive even. But given a regular day, you prefer to just be by yourself because you are an introvert.
So, given that there's so many different types and we may have some overlap,
Yes.
because I'm just thinking about it now. Suppose I'm an introverted extrovert. So I'm just thinking about all the different ways that things can overlap. So
The thing is that you would not be displaying those two things in the same measure as a regular course of behavior. You may assume a role that causes you to be an extrovert or vice versa, or a sensor or a thinker based on the role or the position or the responsibility that you may have. But at the end of the day, who you are is who you are, and you don't need to apologize for it. But you wouldn't be. There's a dominant trait that is very present. That really describes you. That speaks of who you are. In fact.
So even as you say, we don't apologize for who you are, but we take responsibility for who we are.
Absolutely.
That is right. Somebody say hallelujah. So yes. So let me not take for granted that everyone will know the personality type that they are. Are there tests and stuff that they can do to see where they fall if they just don't know what they are?
Absolutely. There are several tests that are around that you can identify. If you go online, there are some that have now been made free. There's a time when I was studying, for example, Myers-Briggs, you have to pay to do it. Now you can go online and do a Myers-Briggs personality test online. So there's Myers-Briggs, Myers, M-Y-E-R-S, Briggs, hyphenated word, personality type indicators. And it really is just to show your preferences, their personality type, your strengths, and so on. And so you also have what we call the Big Five personality factors. And the Big Five speaks of the extroversion, the agreeableness, the conscientiousness, the neuroticism, and the openness to experience. So you can go online, you can search for Big Five personality factors, and you can do the test in that regard as well. Let me just say though that the Myers-Briggs is known, and that was influenced by work by Carl Jung and Catherine Briggs, that it is really it has been tried and tested, and it has been proven to be one of the better assessment tools for personality type. So Isabel Myers, Catherine Briggs, and Carl Jung, they are some of the persons who were instrumental in coming up with Myers-Briggs personality type.
All right. I'm assuming, and I'm making a lot of assumptions because I know that you're going to clarify them for us. Are we to think that when personalities clash in families, it's really because they're opposites and that's why they're having this clashing going on? Is that true in all cases?
It is true in some cases, but not in all cases. Because sometimes what happens is that the parent, for example, may see themselves in the child. And so sometimes they know exactly where the child is going, they know exactly what the child may do, and all of that. And some of those things they may not like about themselves. And so rather than guide the child, sometimes they go into this defense, and the child cannot understand why you are doing this to me because I haven't done anything. But what it really is that they see the child as their mirror, and so they don't like it. And so rather than helping them to make that change, they become defensive, and then there is that issue between the parent and the child. So similarities can pose depending on the nature of those similarities. But generally, it is when there is the extremes, the extrovert, the introvert. And of course, it doesn't necessarily mean that because I'm an extrovert and you're an introvert that we're going to clash. It may just mean that we both have strong personalities, and the tendency is to compete, or the tendency is to show who has the greater power. The tendency is to show that if you can do it, I can do it, that kind of thing. And then it is interesting because even though I may be an extrovert, you may be an extrovert, but I play it down, I manage it. But there's some persons whose personality type is also driven by their needs. So the need to belong will cause you to show like this Mr. Know-it-all or Miss Know-it-all. The need to please people because of your experiences, of course, that would have driven you that in that direction. So even though you may be an introvert, and that's okay, but there's a need to please people, and so you're a yes person. And so that can cause another person to see that and just hate that about you, and just think that it is just, or persons who are dictator. Persons who are dictators, who they always know everything, and they have to tell you what to do. So even where there's no need for any instruction, there's no need for any person to take the lead, or they're always the one jumping in front to take the lead. And sometimes, as we say, can rub some persons really wrong. And unfortunately, you do have that in the family as well, where some children are just very assertive, very aggressive, and the parents may be, very subdued and sedate and so on, and they just can't handle that personality of the child. And that, of course, propels into all kinds of things.
Okay. So we see where personalities, just to do a recap for those who may just be joining. So their personalities, which is um, not something that's a one-off thing, but it's basically the cumulative. It's how we are, how we act, how we feel, how we behave over an extended period. Right,
Right,
Dr. Joan?
right.
All right. And then there are different personality types.
Yes,
So I'll just say the ones I remember: the introvert, the extrovert, the sensor, the thinker, and some other ones like type A, type B, type
right,
C, and D.
right.
Right.
Yes.
So
Good.
all of those are there.
Got an A. You got an A right there.
I got an A right there.
Yes, yes.
And then because different persons have different personalities, which is generally how they are. But
Yes,
and we don't apologize for our personality, but we take responsibility for our personality and the action that come from how we are.
exactly.
And because in the family they're different person, different personalities, they will clash. But
Yes,
sometimes you'll even have parents who see themselves in the child, so they
yes,
have similar personalities, and that's why they are clashing. So it's not the
yes.
differences, but the
Alone.
similarity.
The differences are there, but also the similarities. And sometimes it's very difficult to identify when you have the similarities, it's harder to detect. Why? Because you really don't see where the child is doing anything. You really don't see anything, but this parent or this older sibling or this aunt, may just see this little boy or this little girl who is just a split image of him and herself. I have a friend who had a similar experience that her mother, from she was born, her mother kept on saying, "Why does she remind me so much of myself?"
Mm.
And she would beat her. She would beat her, and the child could not understand why her brother and her sister, her other siblings, would do similar things, worse things, and they would be pardoned. But once she slips, she would get a beating. And she couldn't understand. It was later on that the mother told her why. The mother recognized and told her why. But of course, what it did not help this young lady because she couldn't figure out what she was doing. Because she wasn't really doing anything. She just was being like her mother.
So we see, and I find it rather curious because there are times when their mothers, fathers who want the children to be just like them, and
Mhm.
they're pushing to see the child do the same things they used to do, go to the same school, but then, and I'm guessing because of the regret that they have about how their life would have gone at the younger stages, they're just trying to stamp it out as much as possible.
Exactly. So they're
And you're
trying
saying that this is not healthy.
that's not healthy because what you're doing is that you're trying and hence the conflict, the personality clash because the child is different. The child doesn't want those things. The child desires other things, and the parents, oh, I didn't get to become a lawyer, or I didn't get to become an ex or whatever, and so I'm going to push you so that you become this is a good thing to do. Good thing for who? Good thing for the parent because they did not achieve what they wanted, and so they want to live their life through the child.
Wow. I can imagine that you're stepping on some corn somewhere along the line,
Mhm.
but we know that truth is coming in, that somebody's benefiting. And I'm
Yes.
going to take a break and think about these things. But before I throw to that break, let me ask our viewers and listeners to join in. I want to hear from you. How do you deal with personality clashes in your family? Tell me about it. How do you deal with them? Send your texts and voice notes, WhatsApp clearly, to 876 997 3125. Voice notes, keep them to a maximum of 30 seconds, if that much. You may call the studio lines, use 876 968 8327 or 97 876-968-8328. And of course, if you're watching via YouTube or Facebook, go ahead and post or comment right where you are. This is Family Time, and we're talking about personality clashes in the family with Joan Pinkney. Come back after the break. Looking forward to see your comments.
Phoenix Health and Vision Center now has 2 locations. St. Anne's Bay, 65 Main Street beside the health center. And now Shop 30 Champion Plaza, Falmouth, Trelawney. You heard me right. Shop 30 Champion Plaza, Falmouth, Trelawney. The only full-service eye care center for all your designer frames and designer glasses. Complete eye care. Book all your appointments now in St. Anne's Bay. Call 876-972-2388. 876-589-8327. For Falmouth and its environs, call this number 876-533-0540. Looking forward to seeing you at both locations. Phoenix Health and Vision Center. Now at Champion Plaza, Falmouth, Trelawney.
NHF is here for you. Getting that discount on my daughter's medication is a relief. The NHF card makes it so affordable that she doesn't miss a dose. Whenever my parents visit a public hospital, I can fill their prescription at DrugServe pharmacies at no extra cost. Not to mention, renovating and building new health centers, hospital wards, and providing new medical equipment. The NHF is always helping to take care of my family. The NHF is here for health. The NHF is here for you.
Welcome back to Family Time right here on Love 101, the family station. And my guest today is Dr. Joan Pinkney. It's interesting that she's my guest because she has a show on the station here. Dr. Joan, you're back with us.
I am here. I am here.
All right. So we're talking about personality clashes in the family. And let me just check. Is there any voice note as yet? We can get to the voice notes or text if there are any. Okay, so we don't have any yet, so we power right along. So Dr. Joan, to touch back on something that we would have looked at just before the break, we don't apologize for personalities, but just to be sure, are there some personality traits that are just not good? They're not good, they're not healthy, and we probably should get rid of those.
Yes.
Okay.
We talked about neuroticism, yes, where it reflects the general tendency toward negative emotions. And this trait is really that the person gets angry easily, is always anxious, very emotionally unstable, and even become depressed easily. So these where the person literally has a disposition to these traits and very often demonstrate these in their regular way of being. So for example, they see the glass as half empty. They see the negative things in whatever it is that they're looking at. So whereas the person who is an extrovert, for example, or a type A or even a type B would look forward to enjoying this thing, they begin to say, I wonder if the plane going to crash. I wonder if, and they begin to look at the negative first rather than looking at, I'm going to foreign, I'm going to enjoy myself. First, the thinking about is, I wonder if this, I don't have enough money. I wonder, and they're going through those negatives and embracing those negatives, and very often rob themselves of the opportunity to enjoy. So they really don't have a lot of fun in their lives. And so that is something that someone should work on to try to minimize, to perhaps try to understand what would have influenced those so deeply, and to try to see how best those can be minimized and the change can happen, because it can happen.
Okay, so I hear we have a caller on the line. So let's hear that new voice. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good
And
evening.
good evening, Sister Pinkney, Doctor.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, as I hear you talk about the word personality, just what you said a while ago. Some of us will have personality where we don't care what the rest of it coming from. We know we're going and we will get it done. As well as you have the others. Well, growing up, I have 2 sisters and a brother. And I was the mad one, as Mama would state it. And because of that, I would get away with almost everything. So, and it would create a lot of jealousy. And I believe that jealousy has lived through my life right to up to adult. Then I have two boys, and one of my type of a personality, and the other one don't. And to be honest, conflict is always there because the one who is crazy like me, the one who is more quiet, say I don't love him like I love the crazy one.
Oh.
Yes.
But so like favoritism was running in your family when you were a child and when you are now an adult.
Right. So I'm saying, as a child, I have that kind of a personality who is a go-getter. And my mom would call me for everything because she can fix it, but she believes I can. And I wonder how comes I don't know, still I wonder why she thinks that. But, so because of it, the other siblings are very jealous.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
And then now I don't know as a child what it is to fit in because somebody always want me on their side. And you know, it's like you're always at the front.
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay.
And you don't really know how to be at the back because there's somebody always putting you at the front. And that's go with me all my life. Business, workplace, everything.
I understand. So
And
we're
it's
going
in
to
a
give
lot of
Dr.
jealousy.
Joan, caller, thank you so much. We're going to give Dr. Joan an opportunity now to respond. So listen out for what she has to say based on the comments that you've given. Thank you very much for calling.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you,
Dr.
Carl.
Joan?
Yes, it is quite true. We're going to look at the effects because that's where we're going to go now. The effects on the family, because that's basically what that particular caller was referring to, how it played out in the family and how it impacted the family, and it can be, for the most part, very negative. It can plunge the family into dysfunctional behaviors. So there is what we call triangulation. So you find that you may find the parent and then the child who is the one who clashes with the parent, and then they bring someone else in to try to get each person pulling on that person to get that person on their side. Or you may have two persons together, together agreeing together against this other person. So it could be the parents, or it could be another sibling, or it could be another family member. And this person feels that they are in this triangle where it's two against one. Or you can have what we call enmeshment. Enmeshment where to involve someone in something unpleasant or dangerous from which it is very difficult to escape. So you may find someone may try to be on your side, but they may facilitate that at the risk of you doing something for them. And so you are getting the support, but you are engaging in things that are not necessary. Some of these things may not be lawful. Some of these things may even be abusive, but you do it because it helps you to cope in the situation given the triangle that you're in. It can even dismantle the hierarchy, because it can, the father, say for example, the father may not agree with the mother's response and the clash that the mother is brewing or the mother is facilitating based on his description, and so he may take side with the child. So in addition to the triangulation, it can dismantle the hierarchy of the family. Of course, once the hierarchy is broken, then you're heading. Yes.
Okay.
Abuse is another one where you may find that various types of abuse as well, including incest, because, and this could be part of the enmeshment, where you, and of course, incest in families are usually kept a secret. So it's not talked about, but this certainly is one of the types of abuse, and a child can be sexually abused, but she's doing that because I'm facilitating this because this parent is good to me
Oh, see what
because
you
of
mean.
the conflict.
I see what you mean. So we have two WhatsApp messages. I'll get to those and
Right.
then we'll come back to the discussion. Who knows? We'll probably get something from the messages as well. It really annoys me as a mother to see my son display the same kind of temperament. Even some things that I don't like about myself, he does at times.
Yeah.
I just talk to God about it for him to help me overcome. There,
Yes.
Dr. John, is definitely something that you were mentioning before.
Right.
And the second WhatsApp message says, I try to be patient and see the other person's point of view. So this is how this person deals with personality
Right.
clashes. I manage my communication as best as possible so that I don't come off as offensive or critical. And
Yeah.
that's from Mrs. Audible.
That's very good. That's very, very commendable. But not everybody has that patience and has the know-how as to the right words to use and so on. It takes time for you to get to that particular place. It can also cause sibling rivalry. You heard the caller mentioned that to this day
Mhm.
there is still the notion of sibling rivalry, and that started from she was little.
Yes.
She sounded like 16, but I'm sure she is a little above
I
that.
love
But the fact is, and that can carry through even until 70s, 80s,
Mhm.
unless there is some kind of intervention to help to work that through.
Dr. Joan, so far we've been talking about families in general, but it came to mind that personality clashes aren't just restricted to families in which everyone is related by blood.
Right.
Are personality clashes more difficult to deal with when it's a blended family, stepmother,
Mm.
stepfather? How I'm guessing that throws a lot more into the dynamics of that family.
It gets more complex because there is a way to deal with the step family or the stepchildren. And so, given the principles of how you should treat with the blended family, it is even more difficult. Say for example, a stepchild and yourself have personality clashes. It's difficult for you to how to treat with that because it is usually recommended that when it comes to discipline
Mhm.
of the stepchild, you should allow the biological child to do the disciplining. And
The
so
boundary
where
parent.
you should sorry, the biological parent rather, to do the disciplining. And so you as the other parent, step parent, it may be a major struggle to be able to work through the issue with the stepchild, particularly if the your spouse doesn't see what you see. If your spouse does not and yourself are not on the same page for this who the spouse would be the biological parent for the stepchild,
Mhm.
for your stepchild, if that spouse does not see what you see and have the same understanding and perspective, then it even becomes more difficult for you to be able to deal with a stepchild with whom you have a personality clash.
Wow, that's a lot of stuff. Um, Given the dynamics there, is there a one tip where we know that it's really difficult, but is there any one thing that you could say, this is probably how you may try to diffuse any tension there in that blended family?
Well, one of the first things to do that I say to any blended family is that you should not rush into wanting to bond
Hmm.
with the child. It's particular, well, whether they're teenagers or whether they are younger. Usually if they're younger, they warm up a little bit more, but it's particularly if the child is still holding on to the notion that my mother should be here or my father should be here and
Hmm.
not you, it's going to take a while. And so what you do is that you speak with them and you just take your time. Don't be too pushy. I find that if you push too hard and insist that they trust you and insist that they do this and so on, you likely will push them away. Don't try to buy them with gifts either. Because the teenagers will take the gift, we take a phone, we take it, whatever you buy for them, and they're still at the same place. So the gifts only give them an opportunity to use a device or whatever. But as far as they're concerned, their perception of you has not changed, because they need to see you play it out and they need to feel that level of comfort before it. So take your time, try to understand the child, talk with the other parent as to, what it is. And if you can, develop a, fair, reasonable relationship with the other parent. But all of that, though, you do it gingerly, you do it timely, you don't push, because when you push, people will begin to suspect that you have another agenda.
All
So
right.
you may not necessarily have to deal with the stepchild a lot. So you minimize, but try to be as pleasant and as courteous to them. And over time, usually children turn around because they're watching you and they will see who you are. And over time, sometimes some take longer than some, but they will eventually see who you are and turn around. And then you can maybe speak to the clashes, you can maybe speak to the differences, but do it very gingerly.
Very gingerly. That's the buzz there. Very gingerly. Don't rush. We have a break, but let's go into the voice note that we have, and that will take us into our break. Remember, send your voice notes as well. Send your messages. 876-997-3125 for WhatsApp. Studio lines 876-968-8327 or 8328. And of course, go ahead and post on YouTube and Facebook. Let's take that voice note as we head into the break.
Listening, I hear everything that is being said. I'm just here laughing. I think I'm like my mother. My mother is a go-getter. My mother always want to help. She's out there for people. I am the same type of a person. Always want to help. Not afraid of anybody to say whatever it is that I have to say. I love it. I love this topic. I love it.
Quite interesting, yes.
Indeed. So let's go to the break and we'll come back with Dr. Joan Pinckney.
Highway 2000 East-West wishes to advise the public that they have had to adjust the current toll rate structure on all legs of the East-West Highway for 2022. As part of this rate revision, which takes effect on Saturday, July 9, Highway 2000 East-West will also introduce brand new discounted toll rates for T-Tag customers at Portmore. For details on these reduced T-Tag rates and all other rate changes, please visit the website at transjamaicanhighway.com. Highway 2000 East-West thanks all customers for their support as they continue working to provide world-class service.
Your taxes hold the key.
Property owners, property taxes for year 2022-2023 are due. Payments can be made in full, half-yearly or quarterly installments. So many ways to pay. You choose. Online at jamaicatax.gov.jm, the TAJ mobile app, mobile tax collection unit, and NCB online banking. Call 888-TAX-HELP, that's 888-829-4357, or visit jamaicatax.gov.jm for details.
So, welcome back to Family Time right here on Love 101 FM. Family Time, as you know, is brought to you by Family Life Ministries. Family Life Ministries provides counseling for people with all kinds of challenges from all walks of life. Listen out for our numbers in Kingston and Portmore at the end of this program. Remember, we're on Facebook and YouTube Live, So tune in to the program via Love 101's Facebook page as well as the YouTube channel. The topic today, as you know, is, that's right, personality clashes in the family, and our guest is none other than Dr. Joan Pinkney. She is a Doctor of Science in Psychology and a Doctor of Philosophy. So she comes highly recommended. She is the author of several ebooks and newspaper articles on counseling. She's also known for her twice weekly program, The Counselor, which is broadcast on this very station, Love 101 FM. Yes, Dr. Joan.
Yes, sir.
We've mentioned quite a few negatives associated with personality clashes in the family, but I'm wondering, is there any benefit? Are there any pros to having clashes of this nature in the family?
Well, someone said, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Mm-hmm.
And so it would be an opportunity for you to, rather than conclude that, boy, I'm going to stay far from this person and it's not going to work, that begin to think of the person in a different way. Begin to say to yourself, why is Sir Twain like that? What is it about him that makes him unique? So you begin to try to understand why and how and so on, and maybe have a conversation with him. If it's a child, it may be a little bit different. You may talk with the child about how they feel. So when so and so happens, how do you feel? And sometimes you'll be surprised the insight that and we say, how deep the person is. So even though you may see this as a clash and as a negative, just to try to understand what's going on in this person's mind. Why is it that they think the way they think differently, or in the way that causes the clash with yourself? And if it's a child, you can help them to rechannel how they think. So whereas you'd say, boy, this is the first thing they go to, you try to help them to say, so why not look at it this way? I hear you with what you say, but how about looking at it this way? But always begin with commendation. Begin with, wow, you think deeply, you think differently. You're not the average person. But I was thinking, wonder, could it be seen in this way? So what you're doing is you're facilitating growth, you're facilitating development. And it's also helping you to be patient and also helping you to look at things from a different perspective. And sometimes it's amazing just taking the time to look at things in a different way can make such a great difference. Yeah, I've heard persons who have said they come to an office to work and they meet someone and they cannot get along.
Mm.
In fact, they clash all the time. And one day there was one common ground, and they decided to talk about it and agreed on it, and the rest is history. Those differences that they had remain, but what they've done is that they've chosen to focus on the things that really matter. And so sometimes I suggest that, that instead of going after every little thing, because sometimes we nitpick, particularly with young children, we need to just choose our battles. Not everything we need to make a big ado out. But you see, sometimes because the child reminds us so much of ourselves, we say everything. Yeah?
You want to stamp it out early.
Yes, to the name of Jesus too. But the fact is that we need to allow the child to be who they are, because look at yourself, you're not all that bad. Yes, you have some little ways that you want to change, but stamping it out and being negative toward the child is only going to cause the child to remain the way they are, or that there be this major tension. So really try to understand how the child thinks, why they think that way, and look for what is common. Look for what is commendable, because there are things within that personality, that within those differences that are common. Start with a commendation. You don't understand why they think the way they think. You don't understand why there's tension between us. Just talk about it. Why is it that we don't agree? What do you think? And you'll be surprised to know how much you may be able to get some insight in yourself and also in the person.
So far from the show, I'm hearing us being called to exercise a lot of patience. We need that fruit to work in us, because really and truly, I don't know how simple it is for say, oh wow, you see things different from me. Let's talk. It's more like, brother, one to you.
Yes, have no sense.
Can I tell you? Can I tell you?
In the name of Jesus.
So it really calls us to exercise patience, and perhaps, like you're insinuating, to be a better version of ourselves when we come upon something which is seemingly antagonistic. We have to look at it a different way. This is a question many persons may be wondering, because they're like, I've tried the patience, done all I could, and pause as much as light within you. I've done all that, and I can't find the peace which is going to happen. When does one say, this is it, it's done? Does one ever need to say, this is it, it's done, we just can't work together? And what about professional help? What place does that have in a family situation like this?
Well, one of the first things that is particularly in a family, I would call on the help of maybe a more mature person first. Yeah, I'd call on the help. If it's a child and you're just not getting along, you may want to call on a grandmother or someone who is able to provide unbiased an unbiased opinion. Yeah, because don't call on me if it's my granddaughter, because I am going to favor my granddaughter.
We'll see the little triangle going there.
You try to find someone who is respected in the family and who will provide you with a good balance in terms of response, and who would take you as a parent one away, or the older person one away, and say, hey, sister so and so and so, so you need to do so and so. Because very often as parents, we have the handle, we don't realize that we're the ones in charge. And so we are sometimes behaving as if the child is in charge, but we're the ones in charge. So speak with someone who may be able to give some guidance and see and try some of those activities that may be suggested. But if it really gets to the point where it's not happening, and no matter what you have tried, and no matter how you have reached out to the child and so on, there is still that tension, then you may need to go into counseling to seek a deeper professional intervention to help you to work through the issues. And don't sell it as, boy, they pick the bad or whatever. Just speak to the fact that you clash, that you're always not able to see eye to eye, you're just not able to work through the issues, and you want some guidance as to how, the best way to work it through.
Right. One person on WhatsApp is saying, good evening to everyone. Personal clashes at the workplace are serious too. I can imagine that they are. But that's perhaps another show. I saw a comment a while ago from Facebook. I don't know if we could have it up again. I missed that one for the benefit of our radio audience. At times, Faith says, it is hard to deal with the personality and start with the commendation. People can be so wrong and strong. Thank you very much.
But I have, and I agree, but the struggle with the commendation is not the other person. It's you. So, and it's not something that you're going to just speak out the top of your head. You have to think about it, because sometimes it's hard to find something to commend them on because of how they are. No, it's true. Because some people are just very caustic, and sometimes it's very, very difficult to find something to commend them on. And when you commend them, they become sarcastic. So you say, well, like your shirt. So what's so good about the shirt? So, and they make those kind of sarcastic comments. So it's almost as if no matter what you do, they push you off. But one of the things that I say with children, and I say it as well, even with the workplace, consistency. Consistency in the positives. So even in the midst of whatever it is that's happening, and the person is responding in a way which would really cause you to decide that, boy, this is it, whatever. But whatever you do, whatever you do, you're consistent. You're not pulling back on your positive, on your regard, on your respect for the person. So being consistent is very, very important, and sometimes that is what makes breaks the back. When you are positively consistent, or you're consistent with the way that you operate, you don't disregard and so on, and that sometimes is what makes it different. But I agree, it is sometimes very, very difficult. But remember, no, the difficulty is not with the person. The difficulty is with
you.
Yeah.
Wow. What a note on which to end. I can almost hear those words ringing. Consistency is key.
Yeah.
And I hear what Dr. Jones said. It's about you. So pointing the finger at the other person, we need to take a look at ourselves. Dr. Jones, time has flown, but thank you very much for having stopped by with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. If you have questions of a personal nature or are concerned about a friend or family member, call us at Family Life Ministries. For our center in Portmore at 117 Cecile Avenue, call 876-939-7917. For more information on our services or for our counselors in Kingston and other parts of the island, contact our head office at 876-920-1034 or 876-926-8101. Note that appointments can only be made by calling the offices. Only call, don't just run in. Otherwise, to keep up to date with what's happening with FLM and our programs, go ahead and find us on Facebook at FLM Family Life Ministries, and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Family Life Ministries FLM-JA. Before you leave, here is this evening's Bible verse. And it reads, "Whoever is slow to anger has great understanding, but he who has a hasty temper exalts folly." And that's from Proverbs 14, and the verse is 29. So join us again at 5:30 next week for another in the series, Family Time. Let me say thanks to Dr. Joan Pinkney, to those who joined us via YouTube and Facebook. Of course, thanks to our show producer, Kathy Gale, Open Door Communications, studio facilitator, Timoy Butler. Thanks to all of those. And on behalf of myself, I'm Sir Twin. See you next week.